I'm Dawson Schmidt here with the latest stories and developments in this week's Commodity Roundup on Trader PhD. U.S. farm production costs are projected to reach new record highs in 2027. That's according to the USDA's latest Commodity Costs and Returns report. The agency expects higher expenses for seed, chemicals, machinery, labor, repairs, and cash rent to push costs higher across most major crops. USDA estimates total production costs next year at about $952 per acre for corn, $701 for soybeans, and $428 per acre for wheat. While fertilizer costs remain elevated, the agency does expect both fertilizer and fuel prices to ease heading into 2027. Even so, production costs have surged over the past decade, rising 165% for soybeans, 146% for corn, and 106% for wheat since 2005. The higher cost structure is also putting U.S. farmers at a competitive disadvantage. A recent National Corn Growers Association analysis found American producers generally pay more than Brazilian farmers for seed and crop protection products, with some fungicide prices more than double of those in Brazil. The USDA confirmed on Wednesday that China purchased 472,000 metric tons of U.S. soybeans. That was the best individual sale of soybeans to China since the country's buying spree this past November. Of the total, 136,000 metric tons were for the 2025 and 26 marketing year, and 336,000 metric tons were for the upcoming season. On Thursday, the USDA also announced another 136,000 metric tons for China during the upcoming season. The announcement brings total outstanding sales to China for next year to 672,000 metric tons. That is still behind the 5-year average for this time of the year. The larger flash sales follow reports that Chinese importers bought at least 6 cargoes of U.S. soybeans for delivery in September through November. Lately, the cost for China to buy U.S. soybeans has been falling relative to the cost for Brazilian beans, making U.S. exports more competitive. U.S. pork exports saw continued year-over-year growth in May, despite slipping in total shipments this month compared to April. New data from the U.S. Census Bureau reported that pork exports totaled 245,800 metric tons in May. That was up about 9% compared to the same time last year. China and Japan have led growth in shipments as of late. U.S. Meat Export Federation President and CEO Dan Halstrom says that while U.S. pork exports are posting a strong performance in 2026, the May results do underscore the urgent need for Mexico to fully remove its PRV-related restrictions on pork offal and other products. He also noted that the situation is costing the U.S. industry millions of dollars per week. Total pork exports through May now run 5% ahead of last year at 1.2 million metric tons. Additionally, the value of those exports are 5% higher year over year. High U.S. beef prices due to low supply continue to impact the export markets. Almost 92,000 metric tons of beef were shipped in May. That is a decrease of 5% compared to a year ago, but it is up slightly compared to the previous month. In mid-May, China did announce the renewal of import license for U.S. beef plants. Comparing month-over-month quantity data, beef exports to the country did increase by 900 metric tons during the month. Taiwan has been a bright spot, with shipments to the country growing 16% so far this year. Halstrom notes that while exports to South Korea have trended lower, they do expect an uptick in Korea's demand when a higher tariff rate on Australian beef is triggered later this month. Beef exports for the first 5 months of the calendar year are still running 10% lower than a year ago at 457,000 metric tons. Thanks for watching. I'm Dawson Schmidt, and this has been Trader PhD.